Okay, guys, y'all know the drill by now. Josh Spell here. I'm the founder of Achievers Training System. We're pretty much full steam ahead here in the Ascending Bundle. Hope that you guys enjoyed the journaling talk that we had last. That's really going to help you separate yourself and learn how to master your craft faster than anything else you're going to do in golf. But tonight we're going to cover something that I probably could have covered in the Foundations Bundle. It's certainly a timeless success principle. No matter what you do in life, you're going to want to have really good skills in this area. We're going to be talking about time management in tonight's training. Having stellar time management skills is a tremendous, tremendous separator in golf, especially at the junior level. Okay. It's what separates those of you who are still struggling a little bit in TYGA and TGF events and those who are in the CGA events and AJG events already, winning those events, having some success there. Time management is a big time separator between those two types of players. Have you ever heard somebody complaining about just being busy? Busy, busy. I'm busy all the time, right? And what do they say? They never have any what? They never have any time. I have a lot of players that I talk to, coach with, train on the reg that, they'll ask me questions or they'll say things like, Josh, this year I want to crack the top 25 on the NC Junior Boys rankings list. Or Josh, I want to make this year's NC All-State team. Okay? And I've heard that you're the guy that can help me get into a top D1 college program. Here's what I want to say to all that, okay? There are a lot of players and a lot of kids your age, not just in junior golf, but all across the country, but in junior golf specifically here in North Carolina, who have big goals like that, and they are only kidding themselves when they say something like that to me or their parents or anybody else. And here's why. Here's the tragedy to that. It's not because they don't have talent. They have the talent. The tragic part is that they have the talent, they have the goods, they have the physical game, the ability. They just don't have time management skills in order to prioritize the right way and to do things and set their careers up in a way that is going to help them reach their goals. And there are a lot of players in junior golf who could not only reach the goals that they have, and I'm talking to a lot of y'all on this audio training. If you're listening to this, you can reach the goals that you have. You can not only reach them, but you could greatly surpass the goals that you have in front of you. You don't know how you're going to develop in junior golf. It's not always going to stay right where you're at. You're allowed to get better and better. And listen, once things mound up, there's a tipping point. If you have your time management skills down, that's part of the groundwork. That's why I thought I should have might have done this in the foundations bundle, but I want to cover it tonight. So we're going to get into this here in a little bit. The only thing that holds these players back a lot of time, the truth is that they never became masters of their craft in things like we talked about in journaling, things that we're talking about in their time management. I want you guys to go from, I'm too busy, I never have enough time. I barely had enough time to even listen to this audio tonight to, wow, now that I have a real schedule in place, okay, a weekly practice schedule to practice by, now I can see all the little 15-minute 30-minute little hour pockets in my week that I've been letting go to waste each week. That's what I want the result to be after you get done doing what we're talking about in tonight's training. There's a man named John Sestina who has been one of our nation's leading financial planner. In fact, our nation's top financial planner for years and years now. He's the best in the world at coaching people on how to have more financial stability in their lives. He got so good at this, he started working. He works now with NBA players, NFL superstars. He's worked with our country's former presidents on how to handle their income. He works with multi-millionaires on how to do this. No matter who he works with, here's what he does. The first thing that he does with a client is when he helps get them started, is he helps them to create a budget. Here's what John says. He says that no matter how small or how large of an income that you have, you first have to identify how much money you make and then where all that money goes throughout the month. And he said this, he said, it doesn't matter who you are, where you come from, if you're at what education level you are, okay? If you're a high school graduate with no college degree, if you're a college degree, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're a very successful person in sales, it doesn't matter who you are. If you do not live by a budget, then you automatically waste money on a weekly, monthly basis. It's just how it is. And he said this, he said it's more than you might think. If you're not keeping track, you're wasting more than you might think. Here's the tie-in to tonight's training session for you in junior golf. There's only two things that you're ever going to be able to spend in your life. The first thing is money, which is what John Sestina coaches people on. And the other thing that you can spend your life on is time. And just like you should keep track of how much or how you spend your money on a weekly, monthly basis when you grow up, now as a junior player, now that you have these goals, now that you want to play in college golf, we're going to use this as an opportunity to teach you guys on how to track how you spend your time. When you keep track of it, you will waste a lot less of it. There's a skill set that you're going to want to develop when it comes to time management. And this skill set is called prioritization, okay? This is a skill set that most people do not have. And hey, that goes for kids or adults. I work with plenty of adults who have poor prioritization skills. And, that's where you let distractions come in, and it's more about what you want right now versus what you want long term, okay? And here's prioritization in a nutshell. Here's what this is. And just if you're writing anything down and taking notes on a night's training, please write this down. Prioritization is this. If something of more importance is happening that you're doing, and then something of lesser importance comes up and tries to get on your schedule, you have the ability to tell that something of lesser importance that, hey, I've already got plans. I've got bigger, more impactful, more important things that I'm doing instead of doing this thing of lesser importance. Guys, that is prioritizing in a nutshell. And I want y'all to start, working on this now at your age so that you can become masters of it by the time you get into college, and you can get even better at it by the time you're in middle college about to graduate. But before we get into the weekly practice schedule tonight, I want to take a trip with you guys down to Durham, North Carolina. Many of you have heard the story of the time that I met the very successful entrepreneurs, the 5 entrepreneurs who radically changed my life when I was 19 years old and in college. One thing these guys were fantastic at doing, these guys were geniuses at they were providing opportunities for me to experience world-class association and training whenever I would get around them. And one of these times we got to go to a private practice with Coach K and the Duke Blue Devils. Now listen, okay, I'm a longtime Carolina Hills fan. I love my Hills. So needless to say, I was only kind of moderately excited to go on this trip when I first heard about it. But you know what? The closer it got time for us to go to Cameron Indoor, I'd always heard and known that Coach K was the real deal. I've always respected Coach Krzyzewski and his ability to coach and teach his players. Like, I knew that he was one of our nation's top just coaches, not just in college, but for any professional organization, any college organization. He is as good as it gets. So when we got there, the team manager handed everyone in the crowd that day's practice schedule. There were probably 150 people in the stands watching this practice. The guys that I went with, they contributed a bunch of money. Okay, they were donors to the Emily Kay Foundation, which is Coach K's daughter. But they have a ministry and a foundation that they donated to that got us some really good seats. In fact, we got seats down right behind the players, all the way down close to the bleachers. So we got handled one of these schedules, and it was like I was reading over the schedule and I was looking at the beginning of practice, right down to the minute and second. Some drills took 4 minutes and 30 seconds. Some drills were 5 minutes right on the dot. But it was like when this thing started going, I was checking the schedule and it was like clockwork. I mean, there was absolutely no wasted time in this practice. The manager explained to us why they were doing everything on that schedule, and that how that day's practice was completely different for the next days or the days before. That all these practices were small bits and pieces of a much larger master program that Coach K had in place. So he just didn't do things arbitrarily. Everything connected to each other, okay? Which probably has a lot to do with why they're winning national championships and recruiting our nation's top players that go to Duke University. So I saw a bunch of talent when I was there, guys. This was incredible. I had just started training in my game, so I was getting a lot out of this. I was at a point in my life where I was very coachable, and I was just seeking great coaching and great training. I hope that you guys are learning to be like that. But think about it. We're watching our nation's highest recruited players Then the man comes up himself, Coach K, and I was nervous. Like, I'd never seen Coach K in person. The only times I've seen him is on TV. And now I'm sitting right behind his players at practice. And so I actually said to him, I was like, nice looking team you have this year, Mike. He doesn't look at me, but he turns and kind of out of the corner of his mouth, he says this. He says, it's a bunch of individuals. Don't call them a team if they're not playing like one. And I was like, oh my gosh, this guy is legit. Like, the first thing that he says to me, he's not making fun of them, but he doesn't let them off the hook. He teaches with the highest standards. And later he taught us this. He said, I don't cater to the weak, because if you cater to the weak, then you'll have a weak team. That is Coach K 101 right there. That is gold right there, man. I don't cater to the weak, or else I'll have a weak team. Nobody rises up to low standards. This is high degree coaching right here, and so we got to experience this firsthand. The way that they had the practice set up was he had his former players who were his assistants, okay? And so they got the practice up and running. Coach K would come up and explain to us, let me tell you why we're doing this drill specifically. Here's what Wojciechowski is going to be doing for the rest of the practice with his group, because he's one of the assistants. And he was overseeing the momentum of practice, the flow, delegating things to the assistant coaches. It was pretty awesome to watch this unfold. They had an 18-year-old point guard that year who was lightning fast. He was the number one recruit in the nation that past year. A little known guy named Kylie Irving, who now plays for the Boston Celtics. He used to play point guard for the Cleveland Cavaliers. He played with LeBron James. But before that, before he went to the NBA, he was there at practice and playing for Duke University. Coach K said this about Irving. He said, guys, listen, and he was talking to us, okay, not his team. He said, guys, listen, he's made it this far all on talent and ability, but he is clueless on time management and how to run an offense. And so he showed us drills he had specifically to help him with time management, to manage his energy for game levels, and things that he would do specifically to put him in game situations to establish leadership and on how to run an offense. And they got to one drill that they were doing. When these guys were running this drill, I'm telling you what, if you have just a single winner's bone in your body inside of you, you would have wanted to see this no matter who you pull for. It was 80 baskets with 4 basketballs. In under 2 minutes, they had to make 80 baskets. And I'm telling you right now, it was layups back and forth, full court now. They were doing this full court, and it was wide slap open. They missed one bucket early on. The clock kept racing. It kept ticking down. They didn't mess up one time other than that missed bucket earlier. And we were sitting there cheering and clapping. The crowd got behind us. They started yelling for them. These guys looked flawless. They did not miss another basket. Coach K walks by us and he goes like this. They're not going to make it. And then they're going to have to run this again. He just knew. He's done this so many times. He just knew that they weren't going to make it. And I was like, what are you talking about, man? They're killing it. They had 72 baskets made with 8 seconds left. They hit 74 with 6 seconds left. They had 78 baskets made with 2 seconds remaining on the clock. And then they hit their 80th basket 0.3 seconds after the buzzer went off. And the buzzer sounded off. They made that last basket right after that. We all turned and looked at Coach K to see what he was going to do. Then all the players stopped on the basketball court, and the coaches, and they looked at him, and he was just standing there with his hands on his hips. He raised up his right hand, and then he twirled his finger as if to say, run it again. And then he went to go get some water. So they kept running these plays. Then eventually one of their seniors goes down with an injury. And then Krzyzewski was telling us more, like, they've been really struggling with this practice today. And he would explain why they were struggling. But so they lose one of their veterans that goes down. Kyle Singler steps up. He's the only other senior on the floor at this time. And he tried to get everybody else ramped up to the expected pace, but the team didn't respond very well to him. Nobody backed him up. And for that, Coach K he went out there, called out Miles Plumlee because he was dogging it. And then he called out the rest of the team for not backing Singler up. It's really cool to see a team kind of come together like this and to have a coach that's leading these guys on how to do this. They ran it again. They do the 80 baskets drill again, and they are just going nuts on this thing. They're all gassed. Couple seconds left. They actually hit the 80th basket before the buzzer went off. We went nuts we were cheering for them, yelling. Then Coach K walks straight up to us, and here's what he says. He puts his finger up in the air. He's talking to us in the crowd, and he says, "You will not interrupt my practice again. Do it again. You will not practice, or you will not applaud average in this building. Do it again, and you're out." Now he's talking a bunch of large donors, okay? People that, well, not me. I was just there, but like the other guys paid like $2,500 a seat for me to even be here for this thing, and he was about to kick these guys out. That's the standard that Coach Mike Krzyzewski coaches with. I want to explain to you guys that's listening to this tonight, okay? You're allowed to practice and to set your junior golf career up with whatever level of intensity that you want. The problem is you don't always find yourself around people who are world class at what they're doing. That's why I have Achievers Training System. That's why we have audios like this to provide to guys like you so you can hear stories like this and get inspired and learn that, hey, you know what? If you've got another gear, chances are you do. Here's what happens as a result of giving this your all, okay? It was pretty awesome, and it was pretty apparent to me in my time at Duke University's practice that day watching Coach K. It was pretty apparent that he did not like to waste his time. When he had that schedule, the first thing that really stuck out to me was how detailed this thing was, down to the minutes of everything that he wanted to get done in that short amount of time he had with him. And like I said, I'd already started training and practicing in my own golf game. This is my early 20s, so I got jacked when I saw this. And here's what happened. I got around these people who had higher standards in their time management than I did. It caused me to raise my own personal standard to what I saw that day. And that greatly, greatly impacted my practice schedule that I had. Like I went back and I was like, I'm not even trying hard. I thought I was before I went to that. But once those guys stretched me, I learned a lot from that. Okay, so back to junior golf. Time management. There's a couple ways to look at time management in junior golf. You've got your overall weekly schedule. You've got your day-to-day practices, and you can get pretty detailed in those, okay? Some days, you're going to want to develop a practice routine for after your tournaments. I mean, think about that for a second. You guys are getting competitive. You're playing in what, 18, 20 junior tournaments a season, right? Many of those are multiple day tournaments. And those of you who develop a practice routine for after your tournament, I recommend doing this after you play, okay? But you know how it is. If you have something to go by and you go to a tournament and you play poorly in the tournament and you were expecting to do well in it, you know what? The last thing that you probably want to do is go out and do some more practice, okay? But when you already have it planned out into your tournament weekend schedule, and that schedule will hold you to that practice. It will hold you more accountable when you have it mapped out, other than just doing what every other junior player does, and they play in the tournament, and some excuse holds them back from practicing afterwards, and it's the same old. Well, I was gonna go do something extra. Here's what you're doing when you have a tournament practice routine for after your practice rounds. Okay, you're developing something called resilience. If you have enough resilience, if you have enough audacity to go out and play a terrible round or a round that you're not happy with, and then you go and you continue to work on your game after that, you're developing a term called resilience. And you can see more of this when you're done playing these practice rounds or even the tournament rounds. When you go out to the driving range, you're going to see other players who already have this. You're going to be getting around people who are out there doing this. And you know what? There's one other person that's going to see this. It's the college coaches, that they like to go out to the range after the tournaments to see who is out there developing this concept, this term called resilience. Okay. That's not even something I was going to talk to you about tonight. So that was a bonus. So you're welcome for that. Make sure that you work on having a practice schedule for your tournament or weekends. What we're going to be covering tonight is developing a weekly practice schedule. A weekly practice schedule. We're going to cover what should be in that weekly practice schedule, okay? What that should look like. We're going to cover what to do with that schedule after you have it made. And then I'm going to cover some benefits that you're going to get by having that schedule. And it's not just going to be that we're finding extra time, although that's one of the most important things. But there are some intangibles that happen when you have a weekly practice schedule that will hold you accountable, okay? We're looking to find extra time in your schedule. That's the purpose of having a weekly practice schedule. And we're looking to have time in two categories. Number one, time for your golf game. That's going to be more time for practicing, playing, more time for tournaments and tournament preparation, even more time to do your recruiting process stuff, okay? The other piece, the other thing that we're going to have time for is time for personal development. That's going to be time for listening to an audio like this. That's going to be time for reading books. You can read books in junior golf. There's about 20 that I recommend, but if you get around any great college coach, they're going to be recommending books. I'm not the only person that recommends these books, okay? There's a lot that you can learn in specific. Every player is at a different stage, and so the benefit of reading a book is it will speak directly to where you're at. It's almost like when you go to the grocery store when you read a book. You don't get everything in the grocery store, you just get the things that you need, right? Well, that's how reading books are. You get the things exactly that you need, and you can go back and read that book a year later and learn something completely different in that book. Um, so that's time for your personal development. How about also visualizing scorecards like we talked about in The Amazing Brain? Those of you that have listened to the Foundations bundle, do y'all remember that? Talking about visualizing a scorecard on the absolute best scores that you want to shoot, something that's like 5 strokes better than what you normally shoot. You got to have time to do that, but you can schedule that in once you have a weekly practice schedule. So weekly practice schedule. Okay, Josh, I'm tired of, all this. How do we actually do it? Here's how you do it. Here's how you make a weekly practice schedule. You want to develop a Monday through Sunday schedule for what your typical week looks like for your practice, okay? Josh, I've already got a tournament schedule. That's completely different. We're talking about your normal everyday practice schedule right here. One of the main things is you're going to want to list your entire day, what you do for the day, not just the practice or the playing, whatever you're doing after school, okay? You want to list from the time that you get off school. So let's say here in North Carolina, you guys are typically getting out of school sometime close to 2:30, 3 o'clock, maybe even 3:30, depending on what school district you're in. But put on a blank sheet of paper or on your tablet or laptop. You can find a teacher at school that's really good with spreadsheets to help you out with this, maybe your parents. But you want to time block hour by hour, whatever time you get out of school. Let's say that it's on a Monday and you get out and you get to the golf course by 4 o'clock. And let's say that you stay there till dark, which is 7, for instance, depending on what time of year. You want to time block everything that you're doing from 4 o'clock when you get out of school all the way up until you're leaving the golf course. And let's go ahead and put in there what you want to work on from the time that you're at the golf course to the time that you leave. This can be specific on whatever you want to do. I'm not going to get too involved in that because it's going to be different for everybody. But talk to your swing coach. If you work with me, write down questions for me that we can get this worked on as far as, working towards whatever 45-day game plan that you're in the middle of. And then go to Tuesday. If Tuesday is very similar to Monday, write in the same things. I can get to the golf course by about 4. I'm actually going to play that day. And then after I play, I'm going to do this. Make sure you write in times for journaling. 15 minutes of journaling. When you write these things down, guys, your odds of doing them go through the roof. So write in, I'm going to take 5-10 minutes, whatever it is, of journaling after I play that day. And then you're going to go home and go do homework. And you're going to want to do this for every day of the week. Also list in what you do when you get home and even up till bedtime. Well, Josh, I can't practice when it's nighttime. I know, but we're looking for extra time in your schedule, so we're going to get to that in a second. Also include your days off, okay? Guys, in the world of top performing athletics, okay, days off are just as important as practice days. Most of you guys don't need to get pushed out the door to go work on your game. If you do, then this training is not for you. Okay, this is for players who are serious, who are out there wanting to get the most out of their golf careers. So you want to have built-in days off, maybe once a week, whatever you want to do there. You got to have some chill time. But if you're working on these things and you haven't ever really worked on these things, if you have not ever really practiced with a weekly practice schedule, I'm telling you right now, you have not been excited in your game yet until you get a jamming mental game, or the right attitude, and significantly better time management skills to go along with that. Well, Josh, how much should I be practicing each week? Okay, how fast do you want to start winning? What are you willing to give up in your non-productive time so that you can really start charging for to make your game better? It's always up to the player on how much you should practice on a weekly basis. I do have those numbers, those stats. That's what I share with the guys I work with one-on-one. I've interviewed plenty of college players, guys that won ACC tournaments, guys who ended up playing professionally, and I know about how much they were practicing on a weekly basis when they were at your level in the game, but that's up for you to decide. 20 hours a week is a good starting point. You're going to want to build from there. Personally, what I like to teach people, why don't we just give us everything we have, right? I'm not talking about taking away from school, okay? But here's why I say that, because when you finally dedicate yourself and you stop playing mental ping pong, one day I've got a good attitude, the other day I don't. One day I want to play college golf, the other day I don't. Okay, when you stop with the mental ping pong and you make a real decision, things get so much easier. And whenever you dedicate yourself to something like this, you're going to be in a period, a season of your life that school or college will never be able to teach you what giving this your absolute all will teach you in junior and collegiate golf. That's why the Bible says, in whatever you do, do it for the name of the Lord with all of your heart, okay? There's a reason why we were designed to give whatever it is that we're doing everything that we have. It's a lot different than the average mentalities out there. Average people are going to see you're biting off more than you can chew. You're whatever it is. It's I don't know, just what average people say. You're doing too much, so you have a lopsided life, whatever. I would rather choke on greatness than nibble on mediocrity. Okay? I would rather give something my all and learn how to be successful at a young age so that I have success principles down pat and I can apply them to anywhere in my life later on. So that's having your schedule. You want to have time in that schedule where you're going to add in the personal development. We'll get in that in a little bit. But the schedule is basically Monday through Sunday, include the weekends, what you're doing with your time after you get out of school. You can even add in the mornings. If you want to do a 30-minute reading session or go out and do some short game in the morning, you're allowed to do that. But make sure you have that in your schedule. That's having a schedule. Second part to this, what to do with your new schedule. Okay, here's what you do with it. You keep it in front of you. Take it to practice with you. And what will happen is the more that you see this schedule and the more that you stick with the things that you're doing, here's what happens. That schedule will eventually speak to you. And see, now that you have precisely what you're looking to work on every day and it's written down and it's in front of you and you know what's going to happen that day, you're going to start to notice that there are things that you haven't seen before. There's little 15-minute blocks that you could make better use of. There's a little 30-minute time frame, 45-minute periods of time that you can actually start using. And after I write that down and you do this every single night, you review this each night, you're going to be able to start to see more things in your schedule. Once you've created your schedule, you're going to be able to make adjustments after you make it. So just because you have like a schedule written up, guys, that doesn't mean that you're locked in there and it's like you scratched it into concrete, okay? You're allowed to start making adjustments. As you start to make as you take some attention away from meaningless things that aren't going to help you in your future, and you take that time that you would have wasted and you put it towards something that can have dramatic impact on your future, like reviewing your weekly schedule, like reviewing your journaling notes, you're going to start to do a better job of making changes in your schedule along the way. That's why I say you always want to keep it in front of you. What you don't want to do is listen to this, go make a schedule, and then maybe look at it once a week. You want to have your schedule in front of you on a daily basis. So that's what you do with it. Here is what having the schedule is going to do for you. So you've learned how to make the schedule, okay? You've learned what to do with that schedule after you've made it. Here are the benefits, and here's kind of the real meat of this training, okay? Here's what this is going to do for you. It's going to create more time. Let me ask you a question. If it takes you, let's say, 30 minutes to make a weekly practice schedule, and then once you make that, you find ways to add just 2 hours to your overall game for the week, was that worth it? In my opinion, the answer is, yeah, it's worth it, and here's why. That's 2 hours a week, guys. And you might be thinking, well, Josh, what are you talking about? 2 hours? Come on, man. That's not going to hardly change anything. And you might be right at first. But watch this. How about the following week? You've still got your schedule, right? Well, yeah. You didn't have to go back and remake the whole thing. No, you might have made an adjustment, which might have taken, 5 minutes? You've still got your schedule, but you already have that extra 2 hours that following week. And then the next week, and then the next week. Doing that little 30-minute exercise that we're talking about tonight of making that schedule pays off just time and time over again for finding extra time. Do you know what that turns into for a 3-month period? If you add 2 hours a week for 3 months, that's 24 extra hours that you wouldn't have had if you didn't have that schedule. Now, for some of you who are ambitious, you have more ambition than others. you like to work harder than others, and you go, I can add more than 2 hours a week. That's nothing. And let's say that you can do 5 or 6 hours a week. You can do more than that if you want, but I'm just going to say 5 or 6 for an example. Do you realize that 6 hours a week for that same 3 months is 72 hours? That's a pretty good chunk of time, okay, to do some stuff with that, isn't it? Like, listen, if you work on your game, let's say an average of 30 hours a week, and that's just like pulling what? That's like pulling an extra 2.5 weeks of extra practice out of thin air. If you're able to add 5 to 6 hours a week to your practice, that's 72 hours, and you normally practice 30 hours a week. You just added 2.5 weeks of practice out of thin air. This is what top performers do, guys. I'm telling you, this is how you learn to succeed. Here's how success works. Not in golf, but in anything that you do in life. It's baby steps. And it's baby steps. And it's small, little, seemingly insignificant baby steps. Finding an extra 45 minutes here and there. Doing these baby steps that when compounded over time will produce massive results. Think about where you are right now in your golf game. And let's say that you added on average 5 hours a week. And let's give this 5 years. So for 5 years, you're practicing. And you've added 5 hours a week over the course of now to well into your college career, okay? Do you know that that adds up to over 1,300 hours that you would not have practiced? How valuable is that weekly practice schedule starting to look now, right? Pretty dang valuable. How much better can you get at this game whenever it's you versus somebody else that doesn't have a weekly practice schedule, and you now have 1,300 more hours that you have put into your game over the course of 5 years? And think about how you split that up. Hey, that all doesn't have to be more practicing and playing, guys. That I would split that up half and half. Half to your physical game and half to what nobody else works on, their mental game. Let's talk about that for a second. Time for personal development. This is time to review the journaling notes that we talked about in the earlier audio. There's other stuff that y'all can read, guys. Y'all can read Rotella's books. There's other things you can look up. I'm not your only source for mental coaching, okay? Now, if you want to hire them, you can. It's going to be about $2,000 for the cheapest guys and then $7,500 for the best. A little bit different than $125 for an audio bundle. But what I'm getting at here is you can now learn how to have time to work on your personal development by reviewing journaling notes, by reading books, by listening to an audio like this. What would happen if you doubled up on the audios that you're listening to, right? Not only will you have more time than you ever had to work on your game, but when you increase the amount of good stuff that you are pouring inside of yourself, when you keep getting better and personally growing from the inside out by listening to audio trainings like this, by reading books, and by studying what you're learning in your notes and your journaling, when you're working at this from two different angles, you will be growing the fastest you've ever grown in your golf game. So I just want to add in some of that. That's just adding in time to your schedule is just the start of the benefits that you get from time management skills. It's proven that having a weekly practice schedule will produce certain intangibles that only having a schedule to live by will give you. And one of those will be having a sense of urgency. Complacent players lack a sense of urgency. Listen, nobody ever plans to be lazy, do they? Or to procrastinate all the time. I'm just going to go out and give this the most half-butt effort I could ever do. Like, nobody ever does that, right? Nobody plans to be average, and nobody certainly plans to fail. Those are all things that happen when you don't make a plan or when you don't focus on time management. What we're doing tonight is we're making a plan so that you can maximize your time on a weekly, monthly basis. We're making a schedule that will maximize our time every week. Give you more time for your game, more time for your mental game. Hey, more time for your schoolwork. Listen, if you do this stuff right, guys, it's not all about golf, okay? If you get time management down, you'll have more times for other things like hobbies. Go out and get some hunting in, man. Go do some fishing. Go four-wheeling. Go whatever it is. But it's so much better than just wasting time on meaningless crap that's not going to amount to anything. That's why I'm so passionate about this. You guys can learn something so cool in your life right now that it will change your life if you just give this a little bit of time. So it's all about eliminating non-productive habits and things out of your life that are robbing your schedule of the time it takes for you to become your best, to absolutely become great at golf. Having a sense of urgency. Let's get on that for a second, okay? Not having a sense of urgency, I would say, would be like my old school UNC Pembroke's basketball team playing against a team that does have a sense of urgency, like Duke University. They used to play their first game every single year would either be the Tar Heels or Duke Blue Devils. It would be UNC Pembroke. It's their warm-up game. It's for the Blue Devils or the Tar Heels to go out and absolutely beat the crap out of somebody and get warmed up, okay? Here's what the difference of sense of urgency is. It was always seemed like 95 to 58 any game that we went to. Just absolutely annihilated our team year after year after year. Sense of urgency is huge. Here's what having a sense of urgency in a weekly schedule or a daily schedule looks like. A sense of urgency is defined as the quality or condition of being urgent, something of pressing importance. If I have one player who works on their game 28 hours a week, and the other player who does that same 20 hours a week, and let's say that all things are given, all the handicaps are given, same swing instructor, everything is even, their scores is even, and one is going by the using a schedule and the other one isn't. The one that's going by the schedule wins big long term every case. Every single time that happens, they do that. One reason why is because they have a sense of urgency in their practice. They have a game plan, just like Coach K was sticking to that game plan, and those boys were doing everything that he said. I want y'all to do the things that I'm recommending in tonight's training session. Now listen, I can't be out there getting in your grill whenever you're doing short game tomorrow, right? That's going to be up to you. But you are allowed to sit there and replay this audio back whenever you're practicing, as long as that's not a distraction or right before you go to practice, and get yourself fired up. Some of my best practices are whenever I have listened to audio trainings, not my own, because that'd be a little bit weird. Actually, I haven't even thought about that. I wonder if I should do that. I don't know. I'll figure that out later. But other audio trainings, okay, sermons, I get fired up. I'm sorry. I love personally growing and doing this when I'm out there practicing. I'm recommending that to you guys. I want to give y'all one or two stories here, and then we're going to wrap it up. So I was helping out with First Tee, and there's this cool junior. I love this kid to death. He practices out there. He wasn't with the First Tee, but he was out there practicing after school most days. And whenever I would get done with the First Tee, I would go and practice my own putting for 2 hours. Okay. And I would watch this junior player, and he told me that he already wanted to play really top level, college golf and everything. And he's got big aspirations in his life. And I was like, okay. But what happened would be he would go out there, he would practice for about 15, 20 minutes on the putting green. He'd go and chip for 5 or 10 minutes. And then he would go up to the deck and hang out with one of the assistant pros and just have a drink, chill out. And he would be up there for a long time. He'd be out there for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, and then come back and do the whole thing over again. And then he would he would putt for about 15 minutes. He'd chip for like 5 or 10 minutes, 10 minutes. And then he would go back, and then he would hang out with one of the girls that's on the girls' team over there. Really charismatic dude, okay? Super cool guy. I really like him. But here's the deal. Is he making the most out of his practice? Absolutely not. And if he doesn't change that, he's going to get annihilated by people who make the most out of their practice when they go to practice. That's the value of having your weekly practice schedule with you at practice. It's going to keep you from getting distracted like that. Remember what I talked about prioritizing? What's more important, going and hanging out with somebody or just shooting the breeze with somebody when you're at practice, or actually doing the work? There's kids that tell me they're at the course, they're practicing, quote, 20, 25, 30, 35 hours a week, but they're not maximizing. They have minimums mentality. They just kind of check things off, and they're not getting the most out of their practice, okay? I'll put it to you like this. There's people who are better than you currently at golf that do that, and you think that you're never going to be able to pass them. Listen to me. If you raise your standard in your practices right now, and if you have a higher standard in your practice than they do in theirs, what do you think is eventually going to happen? That's how you surpass people. There's another guy. I've got one of my students. He's a college player. They have a guy on their team. This is so funny. They affectionately call this guy the producer, because what he would do for half the practice, he would just do Snapchat videos. Oh, he'd have to get it in, man. He'd do Snapchat and Instagram videos for the whole practice and just like watch everybody. And like, he's there for practice, right? He would be there for workouts, but like, he would spend about an hour every practice doing this stuff. Listen, guys, you wouldn't think that at the college level because you're not in college yet, but that stuff goes on. If you can master this stuff now, you're going to be you're going to be light years ahead of people by the time you're in college. When you keep your schedule handy, you keep that with you during practice, you're going to be a little bit more focused than everybody else, much like Coach K does with our nation's top recruited basketball players. I know y'all have heard me say that a lot, but it's because it's important, okay? Last recommendation here is for your own personal development. If you haven't started a weekly plan to work on your personal development, if you don't have it wrote down, I'm doing this night, I'm doing this night, I'm doing journaling this night, I'm reading this night. Please, now is the time. What better time to go ahead and schedule that in than when you're making your full weekly practice schedule? How about starting with just 15 minutes a day? Whether it's reading a book or that I'm recommending, or whether you listen to an audio training like this. Listen, if this audio training is 35 minutes long, you just knocked out 2 days worth of personal development right there. So that's just a little bit about time management tonight. Hope you guys got a lot out of this. I really look forward to seeing what comes out of this, and I look forward to doing the next training. God bless you guys. Hope to talk to y'all again soon.